An anonymous admirer leaves Clara love letters that reveal impossible truths, until one clue leads her to a man who changed her life long before she met him. Now, the secrets he kept could shatter everything they've built. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of Clara Mendez's small apartment as her alarm clock blared. She reached over and turned it off with a sigh. Another Monday, another week at Graviel Industries. She got out of bed and walked to the bathroom, catching a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Brown eyes tired, dark hair tangled from sleep. At 27, Clara lived alone in a modest one-bedroom apartment that she could barely afford on her junior designer salary. Photos of her mother, who had passed away 3 years ago, decorated the walls. She hadn't spoken to her father in almost 2 years. The pain of their estrangement was something she carried with her daily. Clara got ready quickly, choosing a simple, black dress and minimal makeup. She didn't need to stand out at work. In fact, she preferred to blend in. "Good morning, Mrs. Pereira," Clara said as she passed her elderly neighbor in the hallway. "Good morning, dear. Have a nice day at that fancy company of yours." Clara smiled politely. Mrs. Pereira thought working for Graviel Industries was glamorous. If only she knew how invisible Clara felt there. The bus ride to the gleaming skyscraper in downtown São Paulo took 45 minutes. Clara used the time to sketch design ideas in her notebook. It was her favorite part of the day, when she could lose herself in creation before reality set in. At precisely 8:30, Clara walked through the glass doors of Graviel Industries, a company known for its cutting-edge tech products and modern lifestyle brand. The lobby was all steel and glass, cold and impersonal, much like the company's CEO, Leon Graviel. "Morning, Clara," said Marcos, the security guard. He was one of the few people who actually noticed her. "Good morning, Marcos. How was your weekend?" Same old, watched football with my sons." He smiled. "You're always the first one here, you know." Clara shrugged. "I like the quiet." She took the elevator to the 15th floor, where the design department was located. Her desk was in the corner, away from the window views that the senior designers enjoyed. She set down her bag and turned on her computer. By 9 the office began filling with her co-workers, all chatting about their weekends. No one stopped by Clara's desk to say hello. "Did you hear? Leon Graviel is coming to the department meeting today," whispered Daniela to a group of designers nearby. "They say he's reviewing the new smartphone design personally." Clara tensed. Leon Graviel rarely made appearances in department meetings. At 30, he was one of the youngest CEOs in the industry, and notorious for his cold demeanor and brilliant business mind. Most employees only saw him in company-wide announcements or in business magazines. As Clara opened her email, something on her desk caught her eye. A single white orchid lay next to a cream-colored envelope that definitely hadn't been there when she left on Friday. Puzzled, she looked around, but everyone was busy with their own work. She carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was elegant and flowing. "Dear Clara, I saw you sitting alone in the cafeteria last Thursday, sketching in your notebook. Your complete focus, the way the world disappeared around you. It was beautiful to witness. I've noticed how your eyes light up when you're creating something new. Not many people truly come alive in their work the way you do. The orchid reminded me of you, quiet beauty that most people rush past without noticing. Until next time, someone who sees you." Clara's heart pounded. She read the letter 3 times, searching for clues about who might have written it. The orchid was unusual, not something you could buy at any corner flower shop. "Clara, the meeting is starting," called Rodrigo, her team leader. She quickly tucked the letter into her purse and hurried to the conference room, the mysterious note consuming her thoughts. The meeting room was already full when she arrived. She slipped into a seat at the back, just as Rodrigo began his presentation about the new smartphone design. 10 minutes later, the room fell silent as Leon Graviel walked in. Clara had only seen him up close once before, during her job interview, 2 years ago. He was tall and imposing, with dark hair, piercing green eyes, and features that seemed carved from stone. He wore an immaculate dark suit, and his expression revealed nothing as he surveyed the room. Please continue, he said to Rodrigo, his voice deep and commanding. As Rodrigo resumed his presentation, Clara couldn't help but study Leon. There was something haunted in his eyes despite his confident posture. He stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, listening intently. At one point his gaze swept across the room and landed briefly on Clara. She quickly looked down at her notes, heart racing inexplicably. We need fresh ideas for the interface, Rodrigo was saying. Something intuitive but unique to our brand. Before she could stop herself, Clara raised her hand. Rodrigo looked surprised but nodded for her to speak. I've been working on some concepts that incorporate natural gestures, she said, her voice quieter than she intended. I could share them if you're interested. The room was silent. Clara rarely spoke up in meetings. Yes, Leon said suddenly, his eyes fixed on her. I'd like to see them. Clara fumbled with her tablet, connecting it to the projector. Her hands trembled slightly as she displayed her designs. As she explained her concepts, her nervousness faded, replaced by the passion she felt for her work. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Good, Leon said, the single word of approval sending a ripple of surprise through the room. Implement these ideas into the prototype, Rodrigo. He turned and left the room without another word. As the meeting broke up, several colleagues looked at Clara with new interest. Rodrigo asked her to send him the complete files, clearly impressed. For the first time since joining Graviel Industries, Clara felt visible. Back at her desk, she couldn't help wondering if her secret admirer had been in that meeting. She studied the letter again, trying to match the elegant handwriting to someone in the company. The week passed quickly. Clara found herself watching her co-workers, wondering if one of them was her mysterious writer. Was it Mateus from accounting, who always smiled at her in the elevator? Or maybe Paulo from marketing, who had complimented her designs once? The following Monday, another letter was waiting on her desk, this time with a delicate purple flower. Dear Clara, I passed by the park near your apartment yesterday and saw you sitting on your favorite bench, the one overlooking the pond. You were reading The Little Prince in your mother's copy, I believe. I remember you mentioning once that she used to read it to you as a child when you couldn't sleep. I wonder what comfort you seek in those pages now. Until next time, someone who sees you. Clara's hand trembled. How did the writer know about her mother's book? She had only mentioned that to her friend Elena over lunch months ago. And how did they know where she lived? What had started as intriguing was now becoming unsettling. She looked around the office with new suspicion. Who was watching her so closely? The next few weeks brought more letters, each one more personal than the last. Each one accompanied by a different exotic flower, each one revealing knowledge about Clara that few people should possess. I noticed you haven't spoken to your father since your mother's anniversary last year. The pain in your eyes that day was unbearable to witness. The melody you hum when you're concentrating, it's the lullaby your mother sang, isn't it? The sketch you hide in your bottom drawer, the design you're too afraid to show anyone, could change everything for this company. Your vision is extraordinary, Clara. Despite her growing unease, Clara found herself looking forward to the letters. For years she had felt invisible, first in her father's eyes after her mother died, then at Graviel Industries. Now, someone was truly seeing her, all of her. Meanwhile, her professional life was changing too. After her designs were implemented into the new smartphone prototype, Leon Graviel had requested she join the core design team. Suddenly, she was invited to important meetings and her opinions were valued. She saw Leon more frequently now, though he rarely spoke directly to her. Sometimes she would look up to find his eyes on her, only for him to quickly look away. He remained as enigmatic as ever, making decisive calls in meetings but revealing nothing of himself. One evening, as Clara was working late, she heard voices coming from Leon's office down the hall. Curious, she moved closer. You can't keep punishing yourself for what happened, Leon, said a woman's voice that Clara recognized as belonging to Beatrice, the company's legal director and Leon's childhood friend. I'm not punishing myself, Leon replied, his voice tight. I'm trying to make things right. By keeping her close? What good will that do? It was 5 years ago. Her father made his own bad investments after the deal fell through. Because of information I leaked. Leon's voice was uncharacteristically emotional. I destroyed Eduardo Mendez's career with my carelessness, Beatrice. And now his daughter works for me, completely unaware. Clara froze, her blood turning to ice. They were talking about her father, about her family. She's talented, Beatrice said. She's here on her own merit. Yes, she is, Leon agreed, his voice softening. More talented than she knows. Clara backed away, her mind reeling. Leon Graviel was somehow connected to her father's downfall. Eduardo Mendez had once been a respected investment banker, but a series of disastrous deals had destroyed his reputation when Clara was in college. He had never been the same afterward, turning to alcohol, pushing away Clara and her mother. She gathered her things and left the building, barely registering the rainy night as she walked to the bus stop. Her thoughts were a jumble of the mysterious letters and what she had just overheard. Leon Graviel had ruined her father, the same Leon who had recently championed her work. The next Monday, Clara was distracted, barely noticing the new letter on her desk. This one came with a rare blue orchid. She read it absently. Dear Clara, sometimes the weight of secrets becomes unbearable. Sometimes the truth feels too dangerous to reveal. But know this, every word I've written to you has been honest, even when I couldn't be honest about who I am. You've begun to smile more these past weeks. I saw you laugh with Elena in the cafeteria yesterday. The sound of your laughter made the room brighter. I wish I deserved to be the cause of that laughter. Until next time, someone who sees you. 2 weeks later, Sao Paulo was hit by a massive thunderstorm. The power went out across downtown, including at Graviel Industries. The backup generators kicked in for essential systems, but most of the building remained dark. Clara had been asked to retrieve some design files from the server room for an emergency meeting. On her way back, she took a wrong turn in the darkened hallway and found herself near Leon's office. The door was slightly ajar, and she could see he wasn't inside. Something compelled her to enter. Using her phone's flashlight, she looked around the minimalist space. Leon's desk was immaculate, with only a laptop, a notebook, and a small wooden box on its surface. The box was intricately carved with orchids. Heart pounding, Clara opened it. Inside were several cream-colored envelopes identical to the ones she had been receiving, and beneath them, a letter in progress, written in the same elegant handwriting she had come to know so well. Dear Clara, I watched you in the meeting today, defending your ideas with quiet confidence. You're beginning to recognize your own strength. I've always seen it in you, even when you couldn't see it yourself. There's so much I need to tell you. About your father. About my part in what happened to him. About why I've been watching you all these years, even before you came to work here. The truth is, the letter stopped there, unfinished. Next to it lay a single blue orchid, still fresh. Waiting to be given, Clara stood frozen, the revelation washing over her like cold water. Leon Graviel, the cold, distant CEO who had apparently ruined her father's life, was her secret admirer, the man who had been writing to her all along, the man who somehow knew her most intimate thoughts and memories, the man she had, despite herself, begun to fall in love with. The light suddenly flickered back on and Clara heard footsteps approaching in the hallway. She quickly closed the box and moved toward the door, but it was too late. Leon Graviel stood in the doorway, his eyes widening at the sight of her in his private office. Clara, he said, her name sounding different on his lips. What are you doing here? I took a wrong turn in the dark, Clara stammered, her heart pounding against her ribs. I was getting files for the emergency meeting. Leon's expression was unreadable as he studied her face. He stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. How much did you see? He asked quietly. Clara swallowed hard. Enough. The silence between them felt heavy with unspoken truths. Outside, the storm continued to rage, rain pelting against the windows of the high-rise building. You've been writing the letters, Clara finally said. It wasn't a question. Leon moved to his desk, his fingers lightly touching the wooden box. Yes. Why? Clara demanded, finding her voice. Was this some kind of game to you? Watching me, following me? Do you know how creepy that is?" "It wasn't like that," Leon said, running a hand through his dark hair. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncertain. "I never followed you. I just noticed you." "You know things about me that no one knows," Clara insisted. "Personal things about my mother, my father." At the mention of her father, Leon's face darkened. "We should sit down. There's a lot I need to explain." "No," Clara said, backing toward the door. "I heard you talking to Beatrice the other night. You did something to my father. You ruined his career." Leon's eyes widened slightly. "You overheard that? Is that why I got this job, out of guilt? Is that why you've been sending me these weird love notes?" The hurt and confusion Clara felt was quickly turning to anger. "It's not that simple," Leon said, taking a step toward her. "Don't," Clara warned, holding up her hand. "I trusted these letters. I felt like finally someone saw me, understood me, but it was all based on a lie." The intercom on Leon's desk buzzed, breaking the tension. "Mr. Graviel, the emergency meeting is starting in 5 minutes, said his assistant's voice. "I have to." "Go," Clara said, reaching for the door handle. "Clara, wait." "No," she cut him off. "I don't want to hear any more lies." She hurried out of the office, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. In the elevator, she took deep breaths, trying to compose herself before the meeting. How could she sit there and pretend everything was normal when her world had just been turned upside down? The meeting passed in a blur. Leon arrived 5 minutes late, his usual composure slightly rattled. Throughout the hour-long discussion about the power outage affecting their server systems, he barely looked at Clara. That evening, Clara went straight home instead of joining some colleagues for drinks. She needed to think. In her apartment, she pulled out the box where she had kept all of Leon's letters, reading them again with new eyes. The phone rang, startling her. It was her friend Elena from work. "Clara, are you okay? You disappeared after the meeting." "I'm fine," Clara lied. "Just tired." "Well, you missed some drama," Elena said. "Leon Graviel made a huge announcement. He's taking a 2-week leave of absence. First time in like 5 years, according to Daniela. No one knows why. Rodrigo will be in charge until he returns." Clara's stomach tightened. Was Leon's sudden departure connected to what had happened in his office? "That's strange," she managed to say. "I know, right? Hey, by the way, did you ever figure out who's been leaving you those romantic letters?" "No," Clara said quickly. "Listen, Elena, I need to go. Talk tomorrow?" After hanging up, Clara paced her small living room. Part of her was furious at Leon for deceiving her. Another part, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, missed the connection she had felt with the letter writer before she knew it was him. The next morning, no letter waited on Clara's desk, nor the Monday after that. Leon remained absent from the office as promised. Clara threw herself into her work, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in her chest. On Friday afternoon, Clara was working late again when Beatrice knocked on the design department door. "Clara, do you have a minute?" Leon's friend looked serious. "Of course," Clara said, saving her work. Beatrice led her to a small conference room and closed the door. "I know you discovered Leon was writing to you," she said without preamble. Clara's eyes widened. "He told you?" "He tells me everything. We've been friends since we were children," Beatrice sighed. "He's a mess, Clara. He won't eat, won't sleep. He thinks he's ruined everything." "He lied to me," Clara said, crossing her arms. "He manipulated me." "He's in love with you," Beatrice said simply. "He has been for a long time." Clara stared at her in disbelief. "That's ridiculous. He barely knows me." "That's not true." Beatrice pulled a folder from her bag and placed it on the table. 5 years ago, Leon made a terrible mistake. He accidentally leaked information about a business deal that your father, Eduardo Mendez, was involved in. Clara's breath caught in her throat. What? It was carelessness, not malice. Leon had just taken over the company after his father died. He was young, overwhelmed. He mentioned something at a dinner that he shouldn't have. The information spread, and the deal your father was working on collapsed. Clara remembered that time all too well. Her father had lost everything. He'd started drinking heavily, become bitter and angry. Her mother had tried to hold the family together, but the strain had taken its toll on her health. Leon didn't realize the consequences until it was too late, Beatrice continued. When he found out what happened to your father, he was devastated. He tried to make amends anonymously, sending financial help that your father refused, offering job connections. I never knew any of that, Clara said quietly. After your mother got sick, Leon set up a fund to help with her medical bills. He made sure it couldn't be traced back to him. Clara felt like the room was spinning. My father always said a medical charity was covering the costs. I never questioned it. Leon has been watching over your family from a distance ever since, trying to right his wrong without revealing his identity. When you applied for a job here 2 years ago, he was shocked. He wanted to reject your application to keep you away from any reminder of what happened, but your portfolio was too impressive to ignore. So he hired me out of guilt, Clara said bitterly. He hired you because you're talented, Beatrice corrected. But yes, guilt played a part. He promised himself he would keep his distance. That clearly didn't work out as planned. The letters, Clara whispered. Beatrice nodded. He started writing them on impulse. He saw how sad you were after the anniversary of your mother's death. He just wanted to make you feel less alone. How does he know so much about me? Clara asked. Some things he learned from company records or overheard around the office. Other things, Beatrice hesitated. Your mother used to write to him. What? Clara almost shouted. When she found out who had really set up the medical fund, she reached out to thank him. They exchanged letters for about a year before she died. She told him about you, how proud she was of you, her worries about you being alone after she was gone. Clara covered her mouth with her hand, tears flowing freely now. Her mother had never mentioned any of this. Leon has all her letters, Beatrice said gently. I think he'd want you to have them. Clara didn't know what to say. Her emotions were too tangled to make sense of. He's at his beach house in Ubatuba, Beatrice said, standing up. I've written the address down for you. What you do with it is your choice. She placed a small piece of paper on the table and left the room. Clara sat there for a long time, trying to process everything she had learned. Finally, she picked up the paper with the address and put it in her pocket. The weekend passed in a haze of confusion. Clara barely left her apartment, alternating between anger at Leon's deception and a growing understanding of his impossible situation. She reread his letters again and again, seeing them in a new light. On Sunday evening, she made a decision. She packed an overnight bag, called Elena to let her know she'd be taking a personal day on Monday, and reserved a car to take her to Ubatuba. The drive took almost 3 hours. The beach house, when she finally found it, was not the luxurious mansion she had expected. It was modest, a simple wooden structure on stilts, painted blue and white, with a wide porch facing the sea. Clara's courage nearly failed her as she walked up the steps. What was she doing here? What would she say to him? Before she could knock, the door opened. Leon stood there looking nothing like the polished CEO she knew. He wore faded jeans and a simple t-shirt. His face was shadowed with stubble, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Clara, he said, her name a breath of surprise. How did you— Beatrice, she explained. He nodded slowly. Do you want to come in? The inside of the house was as simple as the exterior, open and airy with comfortable furniture and bookshelves lining the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the ocean. It was my mother's house, Leon said, noticing. Clara looking around. The only thing of hers I kept after she died. An awkward silence fell between them. Clara moved to the windows, looking out at the waves. Beatrice told me everything, she finally said. About my father, about my mother's letters. Leon sighed. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. Yes, you should have, Clara agreed, turning to face him. Why didn't you? Fear, he admitted. Fear that you'd hate me when you found out what I did to your family. Fear that you'd think any kindness from me was just guilt or pity. He ran a hand through his hair. By the time I realized how much I cared about you, I was in too deep. The flowers, Clara said. How did you always get them on my desk without anyone seeing? A small smile touched his lips. Marcos. The security guard? Clara was surprised. He comes in at 5 a.m. I dropped them off even earlier with instructions. He thought I was planning to propose to you eventually. Despite everything, Clara found herself smiling too. Then she remembered why she had come. Beatrice said, "You have my mother's letters." Leon nodded and went to a small desk in the corner. He unlocked a drawer and removed a bundle of envelopes tied with a ribbon. He handed them to Clara without a word. Her mother's handwriting brought fresh tears to her eyes. She sat down on the couch, holding the letters close to her chest. "She was an amazing woman," Leon said softly, sitting at the other end of the couch. "Kind, forgiving. She understood that I never meant to hurt your family." "She never told me," Clara whispered. "She wanted to protect you. She knew how angry you were about what happened to your father." Clara looked at him directly. "When did you start having feelings for me? The real answer, not some romantic story." Leon met her gaze. "The company Christmas party, your first year, you were wearing a red dress. Everyone else was networking, trying to impress the executives. You spent the whole evening helping the catering staff when one of them got sick. No one else even noticed they were short-handed." Clara remembered that night. She had spent 3 hours serving canapes and refilling champagne glasses because a server had a migraine. She never imagined anyone had been watching her, least of all Leon Graviel. "That's when I knew you were special," Leon continued. "But I fought my feelings for a long time. Writing the letters was a way to be close to you without crossing lines I shouldn't cross." "Those lines got pretty blurry," Clara pointed out. "I know. I'm sorry." His apology was simple but sincere. "I need time," Clara said, standing up. "This is a lot to process. I came for my mother's letters and to hear your side of the story. I'm not ready for anything more right now." Leon nodded, accepting her decision. "I understand. And I need to see my father," Clara added. "It's been too long." "Of course." As Clara prepared to leave, Leon handed her one more envelope. "I wrote this the day you found the box," he said. "It's the letter I never got to finish." Clara took it hesitantly. "Goodbye, Leon." "Goodbye, Clara." The drive back to São Paulo gave Clara plenty of time to think. She read through several of her mother's letters, tears streaming down her face as she connected with her mother's words again after so long. In her apartment that night, after reading all of her mother's letters, Clara finally opened the envelope. Leon had given her, "Dear Clara, I watched you in the meeting today, defending your ideas with quiet confidence. You're beginning to recognize your own strength. I've always seen it in you, even when you couldn't see it yourself. There's so much I need to tell you about your father, about my part in what happened to him, about why I've been watching you all these years, even before you came to work here. The truth is, I've been a coward. I've hidden behind anonymous letters because I was afraid of your rejection. I've kept my distance because I believed I didn't deserve your forgiveness. I've loved you from afar because loving you up close seemed impossible, but I can't live with the lies anymore. You deserve the truth, even if it means losing you. And the truth is that I love you, Clara Mendez. Not out of guilt or obligation, but because of who you are. Your kindness, your talent, your quiet strength. If you're reading this, you already know who I am. You know what I did to your family. I can only hope that someday you might find it in your heart to forgive me. Always yours." Leon. Clara folded the letter carefully and put it aside. Tomorrow she would visit her father for the first time in 2 years. She needed to make peace with her past before she could decide about her future. The next morning, Clara took a taxi to the small house on the outskirts of the city where her father lived alone. She had called ahead and he was waiting for her on the porch, looking older than his 55 years. "Clara," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "It's good to see you." "Hello, Dad," she replied, suddenly unsure of herself. The house was neater than she expected. Her father led her to the living room, where coffee and her favorite cookies waited on the table. "I've been sober for 8 months now," he said, answering her unasked question. "Going to meetings, trying to get my life together." "That's great," Clara said sincerely. "I'm proud of you." "I don't deserve your pride," her father said, looking down at his hands. "I was a terrible father to you after your mother died, after everything fell apart." "You were hurting," Clara said, surprising herself with her willingness to understand. Perhaps her mother's letters had softened her heart. "So were you," he countered. "And I wasn't there for you." They talked for hours, clearing the air between them, crying together over memories of her mother. Clara didn't mention Leon or what she had learned about her father's downfall. That was a conversation for another day, when their fragile reconnection was stronger. As Clara left, promising to visit again soon, she felt lighter somehow. One piece of her broken past was beginning to heal. Back at work on Tuesday, Clara focused on her designs, trying not to think about Leon's continued absence. The office buzzed with rumors about where the CEO had gone and why. On Friday afternoon, as Clara was packing up to leave, Rodrigo approached her desk. "Clara, I need the final designs for the new interface by Monday morning. Leon's returning to the office and he specifically asked to review your work first thing." Clara's pulse quickened. "He's coming back." Rodrigo nodded. "Apparently so, and he's calling an all-hands meeting at 10 a.m. Sounds important." All weekend, Clara worked on perfecting her designs, throwing herself into the task to avoid thinking about seeing Leon again. What would she say to him? Had he given her enough time? Did she even know what she wanted? Monday morning arrived with a nervous energy throughout the Graviel Industries building. Clara placed her completed designs on Rodrigo's desk and returned to her own, half expecting to find a letter waiting there. But there was nothing. At precisely 10 a.m., the staff gathered in the large conference room. The room fell silent when Leon walked in, back in his CEO persona with an impeccable suit and composed demeanor. Only Clara could see the tension in his shoulders, the uncertainty in his eyes when they briefly met hers. "Thank you all for coming," Leon began. "I have two important announcements to make today." Clara held her breath, her heart pounding. "First, our new smartphone design has been approved by the board. Production will begin next month, with an expected launch date in the fall. Congratulations to the design team, especially Clara Mendez, whose interface innovations will be the centerpiece of our marketing campaign." Surprised murmurs and a few congratulatory pats on the back surrounded Clara. She hadn't expected this public acknowledgement of her work. "Second," Leon continued, his voice growing more serious, "I have decided to step down as CEO of Graviel Industries, effective immediately." Gasps filled the room. Clara felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her. "Beatriz Almeida will take over as interim CEO, while the board searches for a permanent replacement. I will remain on the board of directors but will no longer be involved in day-to-day operations." People were whispering now, confusion evident on every face. Leon. Graviel was Graviel Industries. His departure was unthinkable. "This is a personal decision that I have been considering for some time," Leon explained. "I founded this company to create innovative technology that improves people's lives. I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But I've realized recently that there are mistakes in my past that I need to address, relationships I need to repair, and a life beyond these walls that I've been neglecting." His eyes found Clara's across the room, and for a moment it felt like he was speaking only to her. "Thank you all for your hard work and dedication. This company will continue to thrive because of the talented people in this room." With that, he turned and left, leaving a storm of speculation in his wake. Clara sat frozen in her chair as the room erupted in excited chatter. Leon had given up his company, his identity, for a chance at redemption, for a chance at something real. The realization hit her with unexpected force. Before she could think about what she was doing, Clara was on her feet, hurrying after him. She caught up to him at the elevator. "Leon," she called, breathless. He turned, surprise evident on his face. "Clara." The elevator doors opened, but neither of them moved. "You're really leaving?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply. "It's time for a change." "Is this because of me? Because of what happened?" A small smile touched his lips. "Partly, but it's also for me. I've been hiding in this building, behind this role for too long." The elevator doors closed again, forgotten. "I read your letter," Clara said, "and my mother's letters." Leon waited, his expression guarded but hopeful. "I visited my father," she continued. "We're talking again, trying to rebuild our relationship." "I'm glad," Leon said sincerely. Clara took a deep breath. I'm still angry about what you did. The secrets, the letters without telling me who you were. But I understand why you did it. I never meant to hurt you, Leon said softly. I know. Clara looked into his eyes. I need more time. But I'd like to get to know the real Leon Graviel, not the CEO, not the anonymous letter writer, just you. The hope in his eyes made her heart skip. I'd like that too, he said. Maybe we could start with coffee, Clara suggested. When you're ready, Leon nodded. Coffee sounds perfect. As Clara walked back to her desk, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, the fluttering of possibility, of a future not yet written. The letters had brought them together in the strangest of ways. Now it was up to them to write the rest of the story. At her desk, waiting next to her computer, was a single white orchid. No note this time, but she knew exactly who it was from. 2 weeks had passed since Leon stepped down as CEO. The news had made headlines across São Paulo business circles, with reporters camped outside Graviel Industries trying to get the inside story. Clara had thrown herself into her work, focusing on the smartphone interface design that would now be the centerpiece of the company's new marketing campaign. She hadn't contacted Leon since their conversation by the elevator, though she thought about him constantly. Have you seen this? Eleanor dropped a business magazine on Clara's desk during lunch. Leon's face was on the cover, along with the headline, The Mysterious Exit. Why did Tech's youngest CEO walk away? They're saying he had a breakdown, Elena continued, pulling up a chair. Others think he's starting a new company to compete with Graviel. What do you think? Clara shrugged, trying to appear casual. Maybe he just wanted a change. Eleanor studied her friend carefully. You know something, don't you? You've been different since that power outage. Did something happen between you and Leon? What? No, Clara said too quickly. Why would you think that? Because every time his name comes up, you get this look on your face. Elena leaned closer. And because your mystery letters stopped around the same time he left. I'm not stupid, Clara. Clara sighed. Elena had been her friend since her first day at Graviel Industries. If she couldn't trust her, who could she trust? If I tell you something, do you promise to keep it a secret? Not a word to anyone. Elena's eyes widened. I knew it. I promise, not a word. Clara told her everything. About discovering Leon was her secret admirer, about his connection to her father's downfall, about his resignation and their last conversation. Oh my God, Eleanor whispered when Clara finished. It's like a soap opera. It's my life, Clara reminded her with a small smile. So what are you going to do? Elena asked. Are you going to call him? I don't know, Clara admitted. Part of me wants to, but another part is still scared. What if we're too different? What if the guilt and the past are always between us? But what if it's the real thing? Elena countered. You said yourself that no one has ever understood you the way he did in those letters. Clara nodded slowly. I need to be sure, though. I can't rush into this. Well, while you're deciding your career is taking off, Elena said, changing the subject, Beatrice wants to see you this afternoon. Rumor has it she's going to promote you to lead designer for the new project. Really? Clara was surprised. That would be exactly what you deserve, Elena finished for her, with or without Leon Graviel in the picture. That afternoon, Clara sat across from Beatrice in what had until recently been Leon's office. The elegant lawyer had wasted no time making the space her own, replacing Leon's minimalist decor with colorful art and plants. Clara, thank you for coming, Beatrice said warmly. I've been reviewing the work you've done on the smartphone interface. It's exceptional. Thank you, Clara said, still feeling slightly awkward around the woman who knew so much about her personal situation. I'd like to offer you the position of lead designer for the entire project, Beatrice continued. You'd have a team of 5 designers reporting to you, and you'd work directly with marketing on the launch campaign. Clara's breath caught. This was a huge opportunity, one she had dreamed of but never expected so soon. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Beatrice smiled. You've earned it, Clara. This has nothing to do with Leon or anything else. This is about your talent, Then yes, absolutely, Clara said, excitement bubbling up inside her. Thank you for this opportunity. Excellent. Beatrice handed her a folder. Here's the paperwork, including your new salary details. She paused, then added more softly, Have you spoken to him? Clara knew immediately who she meant. Not yet. Beatrice nodded, not pushing further. He's doing well, you know. Taking time for himself. I think for the first time since his father died, he's figuring out who he is outside of this company. As Clara left the office with her new contract, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Professional pride in her promotion, happiness at the recognition of her work, but also a lingering sadness that she couldn't share this moment with the person who had believed in her abilities all along. That evening, Clara called her father to share her good news. Their relationship was still healing, still fragile, but growing stronger with each conversation. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Eduardo said, genuine pride in his voice. You've always been so talented. Thanks, Dad, Clara said, warmed by his support. Then, gathering her courage, she added, There's something I need to ask you about, something difficult. She told him about Leon, about what she had learned regarding his role in the business deal that had destroyed her father's career. She told him everything except the letters. That part felt too personal to share. The silence on the other end of the line was long and heavy. Dad? Clara finally prompted. Are you there? I'm here, Eduardo said, his voice strained. I knew it was someone at Graviel Industries who leaked the information. I never knew it was Leon himself. He didn't do it on purpose, Clara said, surprised to find herself defending him. It was a mistake. A mistake that cost me everything, her father said bitterly. Then he sighed. But I made my own mistakes afterward, many of them. What do you mean? The information that was leaked. It would have only caused a minor setback if I had been honest with my investors, but I panicked. I tried to cover losses with riskier investments. I lied about the numbers. He paused. My downfall was my own doing, Clara. I was too proud to admit I'd made a bad call. Clara was stunned. All these years she had blamed Graviel Industries and by extension Leon for her family's suffering. But the truth was more complicated. Why didn't you ever tell me this, she asked. Shame, her father admitted. It was easier to blame others than to face what I'd done. I lost my ethics, then my career, then my self-respect. By the time your mother got sick, I was drowning in self-pity and alcohol. Dad, no, let me finish. Your mother knew everything. She forgave me even though I didn't deserve it. She tried to get me to pull myself together for your sake, but I couldn't. Even after she died, I couldn't face the truth. Tears streamed down Clara's face as she listened to her father's confession. When you told me you got a job at Graviel Industries, I was furious, he continued. I saw it as a betrayal. That's why I stopped calling. But the betrayal was mine, Clara. I failed you and your mother. We both made mistakes, Clara said gently. But we're talking now. That's what matters. After a moment, her father asked, This Leon Graviel, do you have feelings for him? Clara hesitated, then admitted the truth. Yes, but it's complicated. Life usually is. Eduardo sounded tired, but calmer now. For what it's worth, if he's the man who helped your mother when I couldn't, who saw your talent when others didn't, maybe he deserves a chance. Clara hadn't expected that. You think so? I think you deserve to be happy, sweetheart. After everything, that's what your mother would want too. After saying goodbye to her father, Clara sat on her balcony, watching the city lights come on as darkness fell. She thought about everything that had happened. The letters, Leon's resignation, her promotion, her father's confession. So many secrets revealed, so many misconceptions cleared away. She pulled out her phone and, before she could lose her nerve, texted the number Beatrice had given her. Coffee tomorrow? Clara. The response came almost immediately. Name the time. And place. Leon they arranged to meet at a small cafe near the park where Clara often spent her weekends. As she got ready the next morning, a Saturday, Clara felt like a teenager before a first date, changing her outfit 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress. When she arrived at the cafe, Leon was already there, sitting at an outdoor table. He looked different in casual clothes, jeans and a light sweater, more approachable somehow. He stood when he saw her, a mixture of nervousness and hope in his expression. "Hi," she said, suddenly shy. "Hi," he replied, pulling out her chair. "You look beautiful." They ordered coffee, each stealing glances at the other while they waited for their drinks. There was so much to say, Clara hardly knew where to begin. "I got promoted," she said finally. "Lead designer for the smartphone project." Leon's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "That's fantastic, Clara. Congratulations." "It feels strange," she admitted. "Everything's happening so fast." "You deserve it," he said. "I always knew you would go far." Their coffee arrived, giving Clara a moment to gather her thoughts. "I talked to my father," she said after taking a sip, "about what happened 5 years ago." Leon tensed visibly. "What did he say?" "He told me the truth, that his downfall was mostly his own doing. That he made bad decisions after the information leaked." She looked directly at Leon. "Why didn't you tell me that part?" "Because it doesn't change what I did," Leon said quietly. "The leak started the chain of events, even if your father's actions made it worse." Clara nodded, understanding his perspective. "He also said something else. He said that if you're the man who helped my mother when he couldn't, who saw my talent when others didn't, maybe you deserve a chance." Hope bloomed in Leon's eyes. "And what do you think?" I think I spent too long feeling invisible. Then the letters came and suddenly someone saw me, really saw me. Not just the quiet designer in the corner, but everything I am." Clara took a deep breath. "I fell in love with the person who wrote those letters. I just didn't know it was you." "And now that you know?" Leon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now I want to know the real you, not the CEO, not the anonymous writer. Just Leon." He reached across the table and took her hand in his. "I'd like that very much." They spent the entire day together, walking through the park, talking about everything and nothing. Leon told her about growing up as the son of Graviel, the company's founder, about the pressure to take over after his father's sudden death when Leon was only 25. "I was never allowed to just be myself," he explained. "There were always expectations, standards to meet. The only place I could be honest was in those letters to you." Clara shared stories about her mother, about her childhood dreams of becoming an artist, about the emptiness she had felt since her mother's death. "The letters made me feel connected again," she admitted, "like someone understood me." As evening approached, they found themselves outside a restaurant near Clara's apartment. "Are you hungry?" Leon asked. "This place has amazing pasta." Clara nodded, suddenly realizing she hadn't eaten all day. Inside, the small Italian restaurant was cozy and intimate, with candlelit tables and soft music playing in the background. Over dinner, Leon asked about her promotion and her vision for the smartphone design. Clara talked excitedly about her ideas, forgetting to be nervous or guarded. "You've changed," she observed as they shared a dessert. "You're more relaxed, more open." Leon smiled. "Stepping down was the best decision I've ever made. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe." "What will you do now?" Clara asked. "I'm not sure yet," he admitted. "I'm thinking about starting a foundation to help struggling entrepreneurs, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds, using my experience and connections for something good." "That sounds wonderful," Clara said, impressed by his vision. After dinner, Leon walked her to her apartment building. At the entrance, they both hesitated, neither wanting the day to end. "I had a great time," Clara said softly. "So did I." Leon's eyes were warm in the glow of the streetlights. "Can I see you again?" Clara nodded. "I'd like that." Slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, Leon leaned down and kissed her gently. It was brief, tender, a promise of possibilities to come. "Good night, Clara," he whispered. "Good night, Leon." Inside her apartment, Clara leaned against the door, her heart full. For the first time in years, the future looked bright and full of promise. Over the next few weeks, Clara and Leon saw each other regularly. They took things slowly, both aware of the complicated history between them. At work, Clara threw herself into her new role, earning the respect of her team and even the approval of the board of directors. One evening, about a month after their first coffee date, Leon invited Clara to his apartment for dinner. He lived in a penthouse downtown with stunning views of the city, but the space was warm and inviting, not the cold showplace she had imagined. "You cook?" Clara asked in surprise as she watched him prepare pasta in the open kitchen. "I've been taking classes," Leon admitted with a smile. "Among other things, I have a lot of free time these days." As they ate on his balcony, watching the sunset over São Paulo, Leon seemed unusually quiet. "Is everything okay?" Clara asked. "There's something I need to show you," he said, setting down his wine glass. "Something I should have shared sooner." He went inside and returned with a familiar wooden box, the one that had contained the letters. Clara's stomach tightened with apprehension as he placed it on the table between them. "I don't understand," she said. "I've seen the letters." "Not all of them," Leon replied. "There are letters in here I never sent, letters I wrote but was too afraid to give you." Clara opened the box hesitantly. Inside were dozens of envelopes, more than she had ever received. She picked one up, dated from a year earlier. "Dear Clara, today. I watched you present your design for the new tablet interface. Your colleagues interrupted you 3 times, and Rodrigo took credit for your concept at the end of the meeting. You said nothing, just gathered your materials and returned to your desk. I wanted to call the whole room out on their behavior. I wanted to tell them all how brilliant you are, how they're fools for not seeing it. Instead, I said nothing too. I'm as much a coward as they are blind. One day, I promise, your talent will be recognized, even if I have to make it happen myself." Clara looked up at Leon in surprise. "You noticed that? That was months before the letters started." He nodded, a pained expression on his face. "I noticed everything about you, Clara. For a long time, I just didn't have the courage to do anything about it." She read through more of the unsent letters. Some were short observations about her day, moments when she had showed kindness to others or stood up for her ideas. Others were longer, more personal, revealing Leon's growing feelings for her and his guilt about their complicated connection. "Why didn't you send these?" she asked finally. "Some were too revealing," Leon admitted. "Others, I wrote them after drinking too much wine, feeling sorry for myself. But I kept them all because they were honest, even if they were never meant for you to see." Clara was touched by his vulnerability, by his willingness to share these private thoughts with her now. "Thank you for showing me." "No more secrets," Leon promised, taking her hand. "From now on, complete honesty between us." "Complete honesty," Clara agreed. Later that night, as they stood at his doorway saying goodbye, Leon hesitated, then said, "I'm falling in love with you, Clara. The real you, not the image I created. In my mind all those months, I just wanted you to know." Clara's heart swelled. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered back. Their kiss was deeper this time, filled with new understanding and growing trust. The following week brought a crisis at Graviel Industries. A competitor announced a similar smartphone to the one Clara's team was developing, with a release date 3 months earlier than theirs. The board called an emergency meeting, and Beatrice asked Clara to present options for accelerating their timeline. Clara worked through the weekend, barely, sleeping as she revised plans and redesigned elements to streamline production. Leon offered support but didn't interfere, respecting the boundaries between their personal relationship and her professional life. On Monday morning, Clara presented her new plan to the board. She was nervous but confident, knowing her design was superior to anything the competitor could produce. "Ms. Mendez, this is impressive work," said Mr. Takahashi, the board chairman. "But can your team realistically meet this accelerated schedule?" "Yes, sir," Clara said firmly. "We'll need additional resources and some compromises on features, but we can deliver a superior product on this timeline." "I've worked with Clara's team," Beatrice added. "If she says they can do it, they can do it." The board approved her plan, and Clara left the meeting feeling a mixture of triumph and terror at the challenge ahead. "They believe in you," Leon said when she called to tell him the news. "Just like I do." "I can't fail," Clara said. the pressure weighing heavily on her. "This is my chance to prove myself." "You won't fail," Leon assured her. "But even if things don't go perfectly, it won't define you. Your worth isn't tied to one project." His words calmed her, giving her perspective. This was something the old Clara would never have believed, that her value wasn't determined solely by her achievements or others' approval. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Clara's team worked frantically to meet the new deadlines. She spent long hours at the office, often sleeping on the couch in the design lab. Leon brought her dinner sometimes, quietly supportive without being intrusive. One night, after everyone else had gone home, Clara was still working when Beatrice stopped by the lab. "You need rest," the interim CEO said, seeing Clara's exhausted face. "The team follows your lead. If you burn out, they will too." Clara rubbed her eyes. "We're so close to finalizing the design. Just a few more tweaks. It's already excellent," Beatrice said, sitting down beside her. "Better than the original plan." She studied Clara for a moment. "How are things with Leon?" Clara couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. "Good. Really good, actually." "I'm glad," Beatrice said, sincerely. "He seems happier than I've seen him in years." "Can I ask you something?" Clara said, setting aside her tablet. "Why did you give me his address that day? Why push us together when there was so much complicated history?" Beatrice considered the question. "Because I saw how he looked at you, even before the letters started. And later I saw how you looked at him when you thought no one was watching." She smiled. Life is too short to let fear keep people apart. Clara thought about Beatrice's words as she finally headed home that night. Despite the exhaustion and pressure, she felt more alive than she had in years. Her career was taking off. Her relationship with her father was healing, and she was falling deeper in love with Leon every day. The prototype for the new smartphone was completed 2 weeks ahead of even their accelerated schedule. When Clara presented it to the board, there was actual applause, something unheard of in the usually stoic boardroom. "This is revolutionary," Mr. Takahashi said, examining the device. "The interface is intuitive yet completely fresh. Ms. Mendez, you've exceeded all expectations." That evening, Leon took her to dinner to celebrate. They went to a rooftop restaurant with views of the entire city, and he ordered champagne. "To the most talented designer in Sao Paulo," he toasted, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Clara countered, clinking her glass against his. As they enjoyed their meal, Leon seemed increasingly nervous, checking his phone several times and fumbling with his silverware. "Is everything okay?" Clara finally asked. "Yes, sorry," Leon said, putting his phone away. "Just distracted. The foundation paperwork came through today. It's official." "That's wonderful," Clara exclaimed. "We should be celebrating that too. We gay." "Will," Leon assured her. "But tonight is about you and your success." After dinner, Leon suggested a walk through the nearby gardens, beautifully lit with thousands of tiny lights. In the center was a fountain, water cascading musically into a circular pool. "I have something for you," Leon said as they stood by the fountain. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, cream-colored, just like all his letters. Clara opened it curiously. Inside was a key. "What's this?" she asked, looking up at him in confusion. "It's a key to my beach house," Leon said, his voice wavering slightly. "I know it's soon, and we're still finding our way together, but I wanted you to have it. To know. You're welcome there anytime, with or without me." Clara was touched by the gesture. The beach house was Leon's sanctuary, the place he felt most himself. Offering her access to it was significant. "Thank you," she said, closing her hand around the key. "This means a lot to me." "There's more," Leon said, taking a deep breath. "Clara, these past months have been the happiest of my life. For years, I watched you from a distance, falling in love with your strength, your talent, your kind heart. But actually being with you, knowing the real you, has been better than anything I could have imagined." Clara's heart began to race as Leon took both her hands in his. "I'm not proposing," he clarified quickly. "Not yet. We have time for that, if it's what we both want. But I am asking you to consider a future with me, to think about building a life together, whatever that might look like." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "Leon, "You don't have to answer now," he said. "I just wanted you to know where I stand, how I feel. Complete honesty, remember?" Clara stepped closer to him, touching his face gently. "I don't need time to think about it. I want a future with you too." The joy that spread across Leon's face was like the sun breaking through clouds. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply as the fountain sparkled behind them. They were so absorbed in each other that neither noticed the flash of a camera from the garden's edge. The next morning, Clara woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. She had 20 missed calls and dozens of messages. With growing alarm, she opened her messages app to find a link from Elena with the text, "OMG, Clara, call me now." The link led to a society blog's website. There, splashed across the homepage, was a photo of Clara and Leon kissing by the fountain with the headline, "Revealed, Graviel Industries, ex-CEO's secret romance with employee. Reason for resignation exposed." Clara's stomach dropped as she read the gossipy article, speculating about how long the affair had been going on, suggesting it might have been the real reason for Leon's sudden departure from the company. Her phone rang again. "Beatrice this time." With a sense of dread, Clara answered. "Have you seen it?" Beatrice asked without preamble. "Just now," Clara said, her voice tight with anxiety. "Beatrice, it wasn't—" "I know," Beatrice cut her off. "But the board is concerned about the optics. They're calling an emergency meeting. I need you to come in right away." "Should I be worried about my job?" Clara asked, her heart pounding. There was a pause on the other end. "Just get here as soon as you can." As Clara rushed to get dressed, her phone rang again. This time it was Leon. "Clara, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice strained. "I had no idea anyone was watching us." "It's not your fault," she assured him, though her hands were shaking. "But Beatrice called. The board is meeting. She wants me there." "I'm coming too," Leon said firmly. "This is my mess. I won't let it affect your career." "No," Clara said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I need to handle this on my own. Please, Leon, trust me." After a moment's hesitation, he agreed. "Call me as soon as it's over." Clara arrived at Graviel Industries to find the lobby swarming with reporters. Marcos helped her slip in through a side entrance, his face sympathetic. "Don't let them get to you," he advised as they waited for the elevator. "You're not the first people to fall in love, and you won't be the last." Upstairs, Clara could feel every eye on her as she walked to the boardroom. Whispers followed her down the hallway. Inside, the board members sat around the long table, their expressions grave. Beatrice stood at the head of the table, her face unreadable. "Ms. Mendez, thank you for coming," Mr. Takahashi said formally. "Please have a seat." Clara sat, her back straight, meeting each board member's gaze directly. She refused to look ashamed or guilty. "I assume you've seen the article," Mr. Takahashi continued. "Yes," Clara said simply. "The board is concerned about the potential impact on the company's reputation," another member, Mrs. Ferreira, added, "particularly as we approach the launch of our new product." "With respect," Clara said, finding her voice, "my personal life has no bearing on my professional capabilities. My team has delivered an exceptional product ahead of schedule. That's what should matter. Under normal circumstances, perhaps," Mrs. Ferreira countered, "but your relationship with the former CEO raises questions about favoritism, about your rapid promotion, about the entire project." Clara felt a flash of anger. "My work speaks for itself. The designs that impressed this board were mine. The leadership that got this project back on track was mine. Leon Graviel recognized my talent, yes, but he never gave me special treatment professionally." The board members exchanged glances, some skeptical, others thoughtful. "May I speak?" Beatrice asked, still standing at the head of the table. Mr. Takahashi nodded. "I've reviewed all personnel decisions regarding Clara since her hiring," Beatrice said. "Everything is documented and justified. Her promotion was based on merit and approved by the senior design team before I presented it to the board. There is no evidence of impropriety." She turned to Clara. "That said, the timing of this revelation is unfortunate. The press is speculating wildly, and it could overshadow the product launch." Clara's heart sank. After everything, would her relationship with Leon end up destroying what she had worked so hard to build? "I love this company," Clara said, rising to her feet. I'm proud of what we've created here, but I won't apologize for my personal life, and I won't let gossip undermine my team's achievements." She took a deep breath. "If the board feels my relationship with Leon compromises the company, I'll resign rather than let it damage what we've built." A murmur ran through the board members. Beatrice's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "That won't be necessary, Ms. Mendez," Mr. Takahashi said after a moment. "We're not questioning your work or your integrity. We're simply concerned about public perception." "Then let me suggest a solution," Clara said, inspiration striking her. "Let's control the narrative. Instead of hiding from the story, let's embrace it. A campaign about how Graviel Industries values innovation and talent, regardless of who you are or who you love." The boardroom fell silent as they considered her suggestion. "It's risky," Mrs. Ferreira said slowly, "but potentially brilliant. It aligns with our company values," another member added, "and it would certainly change the conversation." Mr. Takahashi looked at Beatrice. "Your thoughts?" "I think Clara has done it again," Beatrice said with a small smile. "Turned a problem into an opportunity. I support this approach." The tension in the room began to dissipate as the board discussed the details of the new strategy. Clara sat back down, relief washing over her. By the time she left the boardroom 2 hours later, the crisis had been transformed into a bold marketing opportunity. The public relations team was already drafting statements emphasizing the company's commitment to recognizing talent and fostering authentic relationships. In the hallway, Beatrice pulled Clara aside. "That was impressive," she said. "You've grown so much these past months. Thank you for supporting me in there," Clara replied gratefully. "You made it easy," Beatrice said with a smile. "Now go call Leon before he storms the building. He's been texting me every 15 minutes. Clara laughed, the tension of the morning finally releasing. She called Leon from her office, quickly explaining what had happened. "You're amazing," he said, the relief evident in his voice. "I was ready to give up my seat on the board if it would help." "No need for that," Clara assured him. "But we should probably be prepared for more attention. The company is going to lean into our story, not hide from it." "I can handle that if you can," Leon said. "No more hiding, right?" "No more hiding," Clara agreed. That night, they had dinner at Clara's apartment, away from prying eyes and cameras. As they sat on her small balcony, Leon took her hand. "I've been thinking," he said. "With all this publicity, maybe it's time you meet my mother." Clara was surprised. Leon rarely spoke about his mother, who lived in a countryside estate hours from the city. "Are you sure?" Leon nodded. "She's a bit intimidating, but she's the only family I have left, and you're important to me. I want her to know you." "Then I'd love to meet her," Clara said, though the prospect made her nervous. As she lay in bed that night, Clara marveled at how much her life had changed in just a few months. From the invisible designer in the corner to the leader of a major project. From loneliness to love. From secrets and lies to truth and understanding, tomorrow would bring new challenges. Meeting Leon's mother, handling the public attention, continuing to prove herself at work. But for the first time in years, Clara wasn't afraid of the future. She was ready for it, whatever it might hold. The next morning, another letter waited on her desk, the first since Leon's identity had been revealed. Clara opened it with a smile, recognizing his elegant handwriting. "Dear Clara, no more anonymous notes after this one. From now on, I'll tell you how I feel face to face, without hiding behind paper and ink. But I wanted to write one last letter. To say this: you were never invisible to me. From the first day you walked into this building, I saw you, your quiet strength, your brilliant mind, your kind heart. I saw it all, and it changed me forever. Thank you for seeing me too, not the CEO, not the wealthy businessman, but just Leon, the real me, with all my flaws and fears. This is just the beginning of our story. All my love." Leon. Clara held the letter to her heart, tears of happiness filling her eyes. From invisibility to being truly seen, it was a journey she never could have imagined. And it was far from over. The mystery letter writer had turned out to be the last person she expected. The man who had shaped her past had become the man who would share her future. And Clara Mendez, once so easy to overlook, was now impossible to ignore. both at Graviel Industries and in the heart of the man who had always seen her, even when she couldn't see herself. The drive to Leon's mother's estate took almost 3 hours. Clara watched through the car window as the busy streets of São Paulo gave way to rolling countryside. Despite Leon's reassurances, she was nervous about meeting Elisa Graviel, who had a reputation for being formidable. "Tell me about her again," Clara asked as they turned onto a long tree-lined driveway. "She's tough," Leon admitted. "After my father died, she withdrew from society. She lives here alone, except for the staff. But she's brilliantly smart and fiercely loyal to family." Clara smoothed her dress nervously. "And she knows about us. She's seen the news," Leon said with a small smile. "She called me immediately, demanding details." The house came into view, a sprawling colonial-style mansion surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. It looked more like a small hotel than a home. "You grew up here?" Clara asked in awe. "Until I was sent to boarding school at 12, Leon replied, a hint of old pain in his voice. "My father believed in rigorous education away from home." A tall, elegant woman in her 60s stood, waiting on the front steps. Elisa Graviel had the same green eyes as her son, though her dark hair was now streaked with silver. Her posture was regal, her expression guarded. "Mother," Leon said, kissing her cheek, "this is Clara Mendez." "Ms. Mendez," Elisa said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm. "I've heard a great deal about you, particularly in the last week." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Graviel," Clara replied, keeping her voice steady despite her nerves. "Please call me Elisa," the older woman said, though her tone remained formal. "Come inside. Lunch is waiting." The interior of the house was elegant but cold, with high ceilings and antique furniture that looked too valuable to touch. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of Graviels looking down with serious expressions. Lunch was served in a sunroom overlooking the gardens. The conversation remained polite but tense, with Elisa asking pointed questions about Clara's background and career. "And your father is Eduardo Mendez, the investment banker?" Elisa asked, watching Clara carefully. Clara tensed. "Yes, though he's retired now." "I remember when his career collapsed," Elisa continued. "It was quite the scandal in financial circles." Leon shot his mother a warning look. "Mother, it's all right," Clara interrupted, meeting Elisa's gaze. "My father made mistakes, as we all do. He's working hard to rebuild his life now." "And you're helping him with that?" Elisa asked. "We're helping each other," Clara replied honestly. Something in Elisa's expression softened slightly. "Family loyalty is important." After lunch, Elisa suggested a walk in the gardens. Leon was called away by a phone call from the foundation, leaving Clara alone with his mother. "Leon tells me you know everything," Elisa said as they strolled among the roses. "About his role in your father's downfall?" "Yes," Clara said, surprised by the direct approach. "And you've forgiven him?" Clara considered the question. "I've come to understand that what happened was more complicated than I thought. Many people made mistakes, including my father. Holding on to anger doesn't help anyone." Elisa nodded slowly. "A wise perspective." After a moment, she added, "My son has changed since meeting you. He smiles more. He seems lighter. He's changed my life, too," Clara admitted. "When Gabriel, Leon's father, died, something in Leon hardened," Elisa continued, her voice softer now. "He felt he had to become his father to run the company successfully. He forgot how to be himself." "And now?" Clara asked. "Now I see glimpses of the boy he once was," Elisa said with a genuine smile. "Passionate, idealistic. The boy who wanted to change the world, not just make money from it." They walked in silence for a few minutes before Elisa spoke again. "The media attention, is it difficult for you?" Clara nodded. "Sometimes. But we're managing." "I was in the papers when I married Gabriel," Elisa recalled. "I hated it at first, the invasion of privacy, the speculation, but I learned to use it to my advantage, for charitable causes, for issues I cared about." She looked at Clara appraisingly. "You seem strong enough to do the same." "I'm trying," Clara said. When Leon rejoined them, he looked surprised to find his mother and Clara in comfortable conversation. By the time they left that evening, Elisa had invited Clara to return soon and had even embraced her warmly at the door. "That went better than I expected," Leon admitted as they drove back toward the city. "I've never seen my mother warm up to someone so quickly." "I like her," Clara said, realizing it was true. "She reminds me of my own mother in some ways, strong, protective of her family." Leon took her hand across the center console. "Thank you for coming, for making the effort with her." "She's your family," Clara said simply. "That makes her important to me, too." Back in Sao Paulo, life settled into a new routine. Clara's team was in the final stages of preparing for the smartphone launch. Leon was busy establishing his foundation, which would provide mentoring and funding for young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. And their relationship continued to grow stronger, despite the occasional invasion of privacy from the press. 3 weeks before the product launch, Clara received a call from her father. "Clara, I need to talk to you," Eduardo said, his voice unusually serious, "and to Leon if possible." Concerned, Clara arranged for her father to come to Leon's apartment that evening. The two men had never met, and the tension was palpable as they shook hands. "Thank you for seeing me," Eduardo said, taking a seat in Leon's living room. "What I have to say isn't easy." "Dad, what's wrong?" Clara asked, worried by his grave expression. Eduardo took a deep breath. "I've been contacted by journalists from that business magazine, Capital and Power. They're doing an expose on what happened 5 years ago with the Meridian deal." Leon went still. The Meridian deal was the one he had accidentally compromised, the one that had led to Eduardo's downfall. "What kind of expose?" Leon asked carefully. "They have sources, documents," Eduardo explained. "They're claiming there was insider trading involved, not just a leaked comment. They wanted my perspective as the victim of the situation." Clara felt sick. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet," Eduardo said. "I wanted to talk to you both first." Leon's face had gone pale. "Mr. Mendez, I swear to you there was no insider trading. I made a careless comment at a dinner party. That was my mistake. But I never deliberately leaked information for profit." Eduardo studied Leon's face. "I believe you. But these journalists claim to have evidence suggesting otherwise." "That's impossible," Leon said firmly. "Unless someone else was involved," Clara suggested, her mind racing. "Someone who used your comment for their own gain." Leon ran a hand through his hair. "That would make more sense. I need to talk to Beatriz, look back through the records." "The article is scheduled to run next week," Eduardo warned. "If there's anything to find, you need to find it quickly." "Why are you telling us this?" Leon asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "After what happened to your career, you have every right to let this story run." Eduardo looked at his daughter, then back at Leon. "Because my daughter loves you. And because I've made enough mistakes in my life. I don't need to add another one by letting you be falsely accused." Clara reached out and squeezed her father's hand, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Dad." After Eduardo left, Leon immediately called Beatriz. For the next several days, they dug through old files and contacted former colleagues, trying to piece together what had really happened 5 years ago. Clara divided her time between final preparations for the product launch and supporting Leon's investigation. The pressure was intense, with both their careers potentially hanging in the balance. 4 days before the magazine was set to publish, Leon called Clara at work, his voice urgent. "We found something. Can you come to Beatriz's office?" When Clara arrived, she found Leon, Beatriz, and surprisingly, Mr. Takahashi, the board chairman, reviewing documents spread across a conference table. "Clara," Leon said, his expression both relieved and grim. "We figured it out. It wasn't me who profited from the leaked information about the Meridian deal. It was Victor Marquez." "Your father's former business partner?" Clara said in shock. "Victor had been Gabriel Graviel's right-hand man for decades." "Yes," Beatriz confirmed, handing Clara a folder. After Leon accidentally mentioned the deal at that dinner, Victor used the information to make several large trades through offshore accounts. When the deal collapsed, he made millions. "He set your father up to take the fall," Leon added, looking at Clara. When Eduardo's investment strategies became erratic after the initial setback, Victor anonymously tipped off regulators about concerns regarding your father's methods. But why? Clara asked, trying to process this new information. Why would he do that to my father? Because Eduardo was investigating Victor for embezzlement, Mr. Takahashi said quietly. We found the preliminary report in your father's old files. He was building a case against Victor's financial irregularities just before everything fell apart. Victor knew he was under scrutiny, Beatrice explained. When Leon inadvertently gave him information about the Meridian deal, he saw an opportunity to discredit Eduardo before Eduardo could expose him. Clara sat down heavily, overwhelmed by these revelations. Does my father know this yet? We called him before you arrived, Leon said. He's on his way here now. When Eduardo arrived, the entire story was laid out for him. Documents proved that Victor had been systematically siphoning money from Graviel Industries for years. When Eduardo had started to uncover the scheme, Victor had seized the opportunity to destroy his credibility. I always knew something didn't add up, Eduardo said, examining the evidence. But by the time I started to put it together, no one would listen to me. I was already labeled as reckless and unreliable. We're taking this to the authorities, Mr. Takahashi said firmly. Victor will face charges for financial fraud and market manipulation, and we'll issue a public statement clearing both of your names, Beatrice added, looking from Leon to Eduardo. Clara watched as her father and Leon exchanged a look of mutual understanding. Two men whose lives had been altered by the same act of betrayal, now united in the truth. The next week was a whirlwind. The magazine agreed to hold their story after being presented with the new evidence. Instead, they ran an exclusive on the real scandal, Victor's crimes and the clearing of both Leon and Eduardo's names. The public reaction was supportive, with business commentators praising Leon's persistence in uncovering the truth and Eduardo's resilience in the face of false accusations. Through it all, Clara remained focused on the upcoming product launch. The day before the big event, she was putting final touches on her presentation when Leon arrived at her office. How are you holding up? He asked, closing the door behind him. Nervous, Clara admitted, but ready. The team has done amazing work. They have an amazing leader, Leon said with a proud smile. I have something for you. He placed a small gift box on her desk. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small orchid charm. To remind you that you're never invisible, Leon said as he helped her put it on. Not to me, not to the world, and most importantly, not to yourself anymore. Clara touched the charm gently. It's beautiful. Thank you. There's something else, Leon said, suddenly looking nervous. I know we agreed to take things slowly, but after everything that's happened, I've realized life is too short for waiting. Clara's heart began to race as Leon took her hands in his. I'm not proposing, not yet, he clarified quickly, but I wanted to ask if you'd consider moving in with me, waking up together every morning instead of saying goodbye every night. Joy bubbled up inside Clara. Yes, she said without hesitation. I'd love that. The next day, the Graviel Industries smartphone launch was a spectacular success. Clara's presentation was met with enthusiastic applause, and technology reviewers were already calling the interface revolutionary and game-changing. Orders flooded in, exceeding even the most optimistic projections. At the reception afterward, Clara found herself surrounded by colleagues offering congratulations. Even Mrs. Ferreira, the most skeptical board member, acknowledged that Clara had exceeded all expectations. Quite a day, Beatrice said, joining Clara at the edge of the crowd. How does it feel to be the woman of the hour? Surreal, Clara admitted. A year ago, I was invisible in this company. Now everyone sees what Leon always saw, Beatrice finished for her. Your exceptional talent. Across the room, Clara caught sight of Leon speaking with her father. The two men had developed an unexpected friendship over the past weeks, united by their shared experience and mutual respect. Speaking of Leon, Beatrice said, following Clara's gaze, the board has asked him to consider returning as CEO. Clara's eyes widened in surprise. What did he say? He turned them down, Beatrice said with a smile. Said he's found his purpose with the foundation. And besides, she added with a knowing look, he has other priorities now. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Clara found herself on the rooftop terrace of the venue, looking out at the city lights. Leon joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. "Proud of you," he said softly. "Thank you," Clara replied, leaning against him. "For everything. For seeing me when no one else did." "You always saw me too," Leon said. "Not the CEO, not the wealthy businessman, just me." Clara turned to face him. "We really found each other, didn't we? Despite everything, the past, the secrets, all of it. Some things are meant to be," Leonie said, cradling her face in his hands. "Even if the path isn't straightforward." They stood together under the stars, two people who had traveled from invisibility to being truly seen, from secrecy to truth, from isolation to love. 6 months later, Clara moved through the rooms of the beach house, making final preparations for the weekend. It was a special occasion. Her father was coming to stay for the first time, and Elisa was joining them as well. In the months since the product launch, so much had changed. Clara had been promoted to creative director at Graviel Industries. Leon's foundation had secured funding for its first group of young entrepreneurs, and their relationship had grown stronger with each passing day. Living together had been an adjustment at first, Clara's modest belongings looking almost out of place among Leon's expensive furnishings. But they had quickly created a home that reflected both of them, simple and elegant, warm and welcoming. "Need any help?" Leon asked, coming in from the beach where he had been setting up chairs for the evening. "I think we're all set," Clara said, straightening a vase of orchids, a constant presence in their home now. "Perfect timing. I just got a text from your father. He and my mother are driving together from the city." Clara raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Together? That's unexpected." Leon laughed. "Apparently they ran into each other at that charity event last week and realized they were both heading here today." The sound of a car on the gravel driveway announced their guest's arrival. Clara and Leon went out to greet them, both amused to see Eduardo and Elisa engaged in what appeared to be a spirited debate as they exited the car. "Clara, darling," Elisa said, embracing her warmly. How different from their first meeting, when the older woman had been so formal and reserved. "The traffic was awful," Eduardo complained good-naturedly, hugging his daughter. "But Elisa knows all the shortcuts. I've been driving this route for 30 years, Elisa reminded him with a smile that surprised Clara with its warmth. The evening passed pleasantly, with dinner on the porch overlooking the ocean. Eduardo shared stories from his new consulting work, helping small businesses with their finances. Elisa talked about her involvement with the foundation, where she had become an unexpected but valuable advisor. After dinner, Eduardo and Elisa continued their conversation on the porch while Clara and Leon walked down to the beach. The night was clear, the moon casting a silver path across the water. "They seem to be getting along well," Clara observed, referring to their parents. "Almost. Too well," Leon agreed with a chuckle. "I've never seen my mother so animated with someone." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the waves lapping at their feet. Then Leon stopped, turning to face Clara. "Do you remember our first real conversation, after you found the letters?" Clara nodded. "Of course. Right here on this beach. I was so terrified that day," Leon admitted. "Terrified you'd hate me forever, that I'd ruined everything before it even had a chance to begin." "I was confused and angry," Clara recalled. "But even then, part of me knew there was something real between us." Leon took a deep breath, his expression suddenly serious. "I've been carrying something around for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I think this is it." Clara's breath caught as Leon knelt on the sand before her. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a simple but elegant design with a diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires. "Clara Mendez," Leon said, his voice filled with emotion. "You changed my life with your quiet strength, your brilliant mind, and your capacity for forgiveness. You helped me find myself again after years of being lost. I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." He paused, looking up at her with all the love in his heart. "Will you marry me?" Tears of joy streamed down Clara's face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Leon, I will." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into a passionate kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "It's perfect," Clara said, admiring the ring in the moonlight. "How did you know?" "I had some help," Leon admitted. "Your father helped me choose it. He said your mother would have approved." The thought of her mother brought fresh tears to Clara's eyes. "She would have loved you," she told Leon. "Just as I do." They walked back to the house hand in hand, excited to share their news. On the porch, they found Eduardo and Elisa in deep conversation, heads bent close together over glasses of wine. "We have something to tell you," Clara announced, unable to contain her happiness. Both parents looked up, then immediately noticed the ring sparkling on Clara's finger. "She said yes," Eduardo exclaimed, rising to embrace them both. "Of course she did," Elisa said with a knowing smile. "My son finally got something right." As the four of them celebrated with champagne, Clara looked around at this unlikely family they had created, a family built from broken pieces, from mistakes and forgiveness, from pain transformed into love. Later, that night, as they lay in bed together, Leon traced gentle patterns on Clara's arm. "Happy?" he asked softly. "Completely," she replied, resting her head on his chest. "It's strange to think how it all began, with anonymous letters and secret orchids. And now no more secrets," Leon said. "Just us, building a life together." "Just us," Clara agreed, lifting her face for his kiss. From invisible to seen, from anonymous to known, from strangers to soulmates. Their journey had been unexpected and complicated, full of twists and revelations. But in the end, it had led them exactly where they were meant to be, together, face to face, heart to heart, writing the next chapter of their story without hiding anymore. Outside their window, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm. The moon painted its silver path across the water, and somewhere in the garden, orchids bloomed in the gentle night breeze, beautiful and unique, impossible to overlook once you truly learned how to see them. The end.